Howdy folks, John here from rchelicopterfun.com. Today I'm going to be showing you what's involved in updating your multi-protocol module firmware to their latest stable release version, which now includes OMP's protocol. So this is awesome. If you've got an OMP M2 heli or any of their other aircraft, you don't have to run an external receiver or anything. We can bind it right to the built-in receiver in the flight controller. This will apply to OpenTX radios with built-in multi-modules such as the Radio Master here or a jumper, or of course if you're running an OpenTX radio with an external multi-protocol module. Same idea, there's just a couple of little differences which we'll go over in the video. This firmware release really could have not come at a better time because this just arrived in the mail yesterday, the OMP M2 V2 heli, which I'll be doing a review on in the next week or two. So stay tuned for that, but today we're updating the firmware. Let's get into it. So before we do anything, we're just going to see what version of multi-protocol firmware we're already running and the channel mapping order. So we download the correct bin file when we update the firmware. So just go into your model selection, scroll down to your multi-module information. There we are. And what we want to look at is the module status. So the firmware version we're running is 1.3.1.36 and the mapping order is AETR, Aileron Elevator Throttle Rudder. So just make a note of that. And now we will go to the computer. We're going to go into multimodule.org's website, and I will have a link to this below in the description if you want to use that. If you're new to multi-protocol modules, or even if you're not, if you've never visited this website before, this is a must bookmark site. Explain everything you ever wanted to know about multi-protocol. Just a wealth of information. And one thing I should mention right now, donations. They're an open source, non-profit organization, and sending them a few bucks every now and then goes a long way to ensure they keep releasing protocols, just like they have with OMP here. So just think of it as the money you've saved on having to buy an external receiver, toss it their way so they can keep updating the firmware with new protocols. At any rate, what we want to look at here specifically is protocol details. Click on that, and this just shows their growing list of protocols that are supported by the multi-module. And specifically what we're interested in is the new OMP release. So it just gives some details about the protocol, and specifically we're going to come back to this, but is channel assignment. That's pretty important when we're setting up the helicopter, but we will come back to that. What we want to do right now though is firmware download. Now this tool has made it so easy. First thing, it's going to show the latest firmware version, 1.3.1.59, and it'll show it as the latest stable. And you can click on all these question marks to get more information. It shows the release date, so it was just last week here, end of August. Now as you see, there's all different types of firmware bin files depending on your radio, your module, mapping, all kinds of things. Now thankfully, we don't have to even worry about that anymore. They've got this wonderful filtering tool, multi-module selection. You just go into that and it shows all the different multi-modules or the radios with internal modules. And ours, of course, that we're doing today is the Radio Master TX16S internal module. And when we click on that, it automatically fills in a bunch of these fields. So it automatically selects the correct module type, the radio type, telemetry inversion. This is automatically selected, not inverted. All this means is you choose not inverted for internal modules. If you were doing an external module, you would choose inverted. The only thing we have to select here is the channel order. That's why we started with looking at it in the radio, what channel order was already in the module, so we select the same one. So presumably it's probably going to be AETR, but again, check in your radio just to make sure it isn't something different where you would select one of these other two. But of course ours is AETR, so that's what we're going to select. And it is that easy. So that huge list has been condensed down to 2 options, and we're going to pick this bin file one. So we're going to click on that, and it's downloading. And that's all we have to do in their site. So wherever it downloads on your computer, we're just going to pull it up to the desktop. And there it is. Now we're going to go back to the radio to drag this into the SD card. A couple of ways to do it. Basically 2 ways to get that bin file into the radio SD card. One is to physically remove the SD card in your radio. Like so. And plug this into your computer through an SD card reader or whatever, and just drag that file into here. Doesn't matter where, just drag it in. But we're going to do it right through the radio. To get this into the bootloader boot screen, which you can access the SD card from directly on any OpenTX radio, you push the 2 lower trims, so the rudder and the aileron trim, in towards the center as you power it on. And there you can see we're in the bootloader screen. Geez, that's bright. Come on. And we're going to plug our USB-C, which is plugged into the laptop or the computer, whatever you're using, into the USB port. And you'll see it says USB connected. Computer did its little beep. So we're going to go back to the computer now with the radio plugged into the computer. Or if you've just got the SD card out and plugged into your computer, go to your drives. And there's our USB. So this is reading the card right from the radio, but again, if you wanted to plug the card in to your computer, remove it from the radio and plug it in, you could do it that way too. And if we click on this, that will show all the files in the SD card. And you'll see one of them here is this multi STM OpenTX AETR channel order, no invert. And this is firmware version 1.3.1.36, as we already determined. We want to get the downloaded file that we got from multi-module.org's website, and we're going to drag it into the SD card. So now in our SD card, we've got the 2 versions. And we're going to go back to the radio now. And we will pull out the USB-C. And we will go to exit. Now the radio will boot.
You turn me on. Normal mode, throttle release, low rates, rudder low, acro mode.
And now what we want to do is go into System. Go into our System menu. And we want to scroll over to the SD card. So there are all those files that were on the SD card that we saw as we were looking in the computer. And there is our new 0.59 multi-protocol. So we're going to highlight that and we're going to click on it. And now we're going to flash the multi-module with the new firmware. So it gives you options here, either flash internal. If we had a radio with an external, we would select the external, and then it allows you to copy the file, rename it, or delete it. So we're going to go to flash internal multi. Now whatever you do, don't power down anything, and it shows the status. It's writing the new firmware to the module. So this is super easy. It doesn't get any easier than this, really. Fast forward. There we go. Flash successful. And if you want, you could leave the old version in there too if you wanted to reflash that for whatever reason. I usually do. Sometimes, even when they come out with a stable release, there might be a bug. You know, there shouldn't be, but if there is, I always like keeping the previous version in there, just if we had to reflash it. You don't have to, of course, but that's just my method. Okay, now if we go back into Model Selection, and we scroll down to our multi-module information, there you will see the new module status has now got the newest firmware version, 0.59. We've got the correct channel order, AETR. And if we go up to mode here, OMP should be in here now. There it is. So we will select that. Now we've got to go to the helicopter. So let's get the canopy off. We're going to unplug the Spectrum receiver plug here. Now I don't know if this auto binds or not. We're going to find out. So we will power this rascal up. Actually, I'm not going to slide the battery in. We'll just plug one in. And watch the little LEDs. So, no, it's not auto binding. So we will go into the radio here. We will go down to our multi-module. So we've got OMP selected. Just going to see if this works. So binding. So I do believe we have to push the bind button in here on the side. Hold it in. There we go. Now we'll hit bind. There we go. So it's working. So you have to hold the bind button in till it beeps. Then it'll put it in bind mode, the internal RX, and then you just have to hit bind on the radio here. And now the other thing that we're going to do is frequency fine tune. What I like doing is this, you can go plus or minus 127 points, and you find the highest point, the lowest point, where it stops communicating or where it starts jumping a little bit, and then you pick the mid value. So we're going to go plus here first. And just watch the light until it starts flashing, the blue light. There we go, it's jumping around. That was at about 120. So we know we can go positive 120. Now we'll go negative. And negative starts jumping around at minus 100. So I'm going to go midway between that, so the midpoint would be plus 10. So we've got cyclic control, aileron and elevator, but we don't have collective. Channel 5 is now throttle. So yeah, we've got to change things around, and that's where we have to go back into that channel mapping screen in OMPHobbys website. Now we can rip out the Spectrum receiver, save some weight. Back on multimodule.org's website in the OMP protocol page, and we're going to go down to channel assignment. And this is important because some of the functions are not the same as with the external receivers. So channel 1 and channel 2 remain the same, aileron and elevator. Channel 3 is no longer throttle. This is where we're going to put our pitch curves. Our collective pitch is through channel 3 now. Channel 4 is still rudder. We're not going to have to change that. Channel 5 has changed from the gyro mode selection to throttle hold. So yeah, you can't use a throttle hold throttle curve anymore. It's done through channel 5, either on or off. Channel 6 is now our 3 speed settings. So we've just got 3 governed speed settings. Can't use throttle curves anymore. So we've got a low speed, a mid speed, and a high speed. And channel 7 is now our gyro mode selection. What's nice is OpenTX makes moving all this around in the mix menu so easy. So let's get back to the radio. Okay, we're going to go into our model setup menu and go to the mix submenu. Now this is going to be slightly different, of course, depending on how you've got your OpenTX radio configured for flying helicopters. I go over my specific setup in a separate video. I'll actually link to it below in the description if you wanted to take a peek. But this is my way of setting up my mixes and my channel inputs. Now what's nice about OpenTX is you can move all the stuff around. There's not going to be really any more programming to do per se, but we're going to have to change a few things here. So as we noted on the channel assignment in the multi-module org site, channel 1 and channel 2 remain aileron and elevator. So we don't have to change anything there. Channel 3, however, is now collective pitch, not throttle, so we're going to have to move our throttle curves out of there. Channel 4 is still rudder, we're not going to have to change that. Channel 5 is going to have to be changed. Right now I've got it set for my gyro selection, either self-level or normal 3D. And channel 6 of pitch curves are now going to be our throttle curves, but they're not throttle curves either. This receiver, the way it works, you've essentially got 3 governed head speeds. So you've got low, medium, and high selected with either 0% output, 50% output, or 100% output. So we're going to have to change our throttle curves as well. So first thing I'm going to do here is move channel 5, our gyro selection, down to channel 7. And this is how easy it is. You just highlight it and move it. And there it is. So now channel 7 is our gyro mode selection. So now that we've done that, we're going to have to create a hold switch for channel 5 because channel 5 is now throttle hold. So we're just going to go into that. We're going to change the source to my throttle hold toggle on the back here. So that's that done. So now channel 5 is the SH switch. Channel 4 is still rudder. Now our throttle curves, we're going to have to move to channel 6. So again, just going to highlight it, hit move, and move it down to channel 6. And do that for all 4 of them here. And make sure they're kept in the same sequence, normal 1, 2, and hold. Again, I go over that in that video that I mentioned before. I'm just going to fast forward through the rest of these. Okay, so we've moved all our throttle curves down to channel 6, but now we've got to move all our pitch curves up to channel 3. I'll do it the same way. Highlight it, move it, and again, keep them in order. Fast forward through the rest of these. Okay, we're just going to go over this real quick to make sure we've done it right. Channel 1 is our aileron input. Channel 2 is our elevator. Channel 3 is now our 4 pitch curves. And we want to make sure they're still in order. Normal, 1, 2, and hold. Channel 4 is still rudder. Channel 5 is now our throttle hold. And channel 6 is our 3 throttle output settings for our 3 head speeds. Now we don't need throttle hold anymore because we've got a separate function for that. So I'm going to delete the throttle hold. And so we've got all that set. Now we're going to go into our throttle curves. As we saw on the channel assignment screen on the multi-module site for OMP's protocol, we've got 3 throttle outputs of 0, center, and 100%. For our 3 different head speeds. I'm going to change this to 2 points just to make this easier. So there's our normal throttle curve for our normal flight mode, giving us the lowest head speed. Go to throttle 1, or stunt 1, and I'm going to change this to 2 points to make it easier. And we're going to set this at the midpoint, so 0. So that's our medium head speed, and then our high head speed to 2 points as well, and 100%. There's our throttle curves. We'll just double check our pitch curves here, our normal, our stunt 1, which is plus minus 10 roughly, stunt 2, plus minus 12, and hold, I like to produce 0 degrees of collective. I go through all that in my setup and tips ebook. For any of you who've got that ebook, this is all explained in a lot more detail. Okay, so let's just go into our monitor menu. So channel 1 should be aileron or cyclic roll, which it is. Channel 2 is elevator or cyclic pitch, which it is. Channel 3 is now our collective pitch. There's our tame pitch curve. That looks right.
Idle up 1.
Here's our idle up or stunt 1 pitch curve. That looks right.
Shit is about to get real.
And our full 3D of plus minus 12 full collective range. That's looking right. And you'll also notice on channel 6 here, when we change that,
Idle up 1.
we've got our 3 different governed head speeds. Low in normal,
Idle up 1.
medium in mid,
Shit.
and full speed in idle up 2 or stunt 2.
Normal.
So those are working right. Rudder channel 4, that's working. Channel 5 is our throttle hold now, either on or off. No problems there.
2.
And our final channel, channel 7,
Level mode. Acro mode.
is our gyro selection. So all that's working. Now just a couple of other things I noticed on here. Let's just get out of this. You'll notice the timer is counting down, and this is my throttle output bar, the way I've got my widgets set up. But as you see, it's showing collective pitch now.
Shit is about to get real.
It's not showing throttle because of course we've changed the channels around, and we've got to get this timer working properly. So let's do the widget here first. So hit the telly button here to go into your widget settings. Go into setup widgets. We're going to go down to this widget here, widget settings, and we're going to change this from channel 3 to channel 6. Okay.
20.
So now
Idle up 1.
there's our 3
Is about to get real. Idle up 1.
throttle outputs.
Shit.
So that's working. Now the timer.
10. 9.
I'm just going to reset the timer here. I don't want that thing
5.
going crazy. So we have to change this now to channel 5, right? Go over to our logical switches, or I call them logical functions. And here's our timer logical function. And it's no longer channel 3, it's going to be on channel 5. So as soon as I disengage that throttle hold, the timer will start counting, hopefully.
Throttle hold.
But it's backwards.
Release. Throttle hold.
So if we go back, I'll just show you this real quick. So when I've got throttle hold on, it's counting.
Throttle release.
When I've released it, it's not. So it's backwards. So we're just going to go back into that logical switch menu again, and we are going to change this A greater than X to A less than X. And that should work now. So throttle hold, timer stops,
Throttle release.
throttle release, timer starts. Now we're going to go to the helicopter and make sure everything's working correctly. Going to go into the output menu. So we can see what we have to change around, if anything here. Plug this in. Notice I've taken the blades off so we can test how it's spooling up and whatnot. Okay, so we'll check the ones we know should work. So forward, cyclic. Swash is tilting forward, so that's good. Backwards. Right cyclic. Oops, swash is tilting left. So we've got to reverse channel 1 from where it was. There we go. Right, left. So cyclic is now working. How about collective? Oh yeah, I've probably got throttle hold on.
Throttle release.
Okay, throttle release. There we go, but no.
Idle up 1. Shit is about to get real. Normal mode.
No throttle for some reason.
Throttle hold.
Oops.
Throttle
Okay, our throttle hold needs to be reversed. It's coming on when it should be holding, so we have to go back down to channel 5, and we're going to reverse channel 5.
Throttle hold.
There we go.
Release. 3.
Oh, and tail rotor's backwards. Left is giving right, so we've got to go into tail rotor as well, channel 4, and reverse that. So if you'll notice, hopefully this is showing up, there's actually no channels that need to be reversed. Oh, we better check our channel 7 here. And that's working correct. When it's in self-level mode, the red LED is on solid. When it's in 3D mode or acro mode, LED is flashing red. So all the channels, none of them need to be reversed. Now, as far as our head speeds, so you see as soon as we turn throttle hold off, it spools up to the lowest head speed. Now if we move our switch to our idle 1 or stunt 1, you heard the head speed increase. And if we go to stunt 2 or idle up 2, it should go to full. Beautiful. All that's working. Okay, now we're just going to check the collective pitch angles with a pitch gauge. I think we got her beat. First thing I should mention safety-wise, I've had to remove 2 wires of the 3 going to the tail motor and to the main motor, and that's just so they don't spool up as we're checking our collective pitch ranges and setting our pitch curves in our 3 modes. You have to be out of throttle hold to do this, so I've got throttle hold turned off. If we plug the motors in, this thing would be spooling up. So I'm in my stunt mode 2 now, idle up 2. So we've got the full collective range, -100 to +100 on the pitch curve, and I'm getting pretty much 0 degrees at center stick, which is what I want, and want +12 roughly on the high end, and -12 on the low end. So nice symmetrical collective pitch range. In my idle up 1 mode, or stunt 1, I run a slightly narrower collective range. So we're getting about -10 on the low side, +10 on the high side. Yep. And then in my normal flight mode, I'm running roughly 0 degrees collective up to about +9, 9.5, somewhere in there. And that's a nice tame, gentle flying pitch curve. That's all there is to it. So yeah, you're just going to have to tweak that in your pitch curves to get whatever ranges you want, right? That's what I like flying at, but you can set them up whatever you want. Changing the channel orders around and resetting the heli, that's obviously the biggest part of doing this firmware update to the multi-module so you can run the internal OMP receiver. Flashing the new firmware was easy by comparison, but that's what makes this hobby so fun, right? Setting up helicopters is all part of the hobby, and you know you're always learning new things, but the basics and the foundation still remain. So it's very cool. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next time, and happy flights.